A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Surah Al-KAHF, ayah number 82. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. وأما الجدار فكان لغلامين يتيمين في المدينة وكان تحته كنز لهما وكان أبوهما صالحا فأراد ربك أن يبلغ أشدهما ويستخرج كنزهما رحمة من ربك وما فعلته عن أمري ذلك تأويل ما لم تستطع عليه صبرا. This is the 82nd ayat of Surah Al-KAHF, and Khidr al-Islam is explaining to Musa al-Islam the third event which has happened. This ayah has three parts. So let's go by one part. The first part is وَأَمَّا الْجِدَارُ, and as for the wall, فَكَانَ لِغُلَامَيْنِ يَتِيمَيْنِ, it belonged to two young orphans, فِي الْمَدِينَةِ, in the town, who lived in this town. وَكَانَ تَحْتَهُ, and under this wall, كَنْزٌ لَهُمَا, there was a treasure belonging to them, like an inheritance. In olden time, people didn't have banks, so they used to bury whatever the belongings they had under a wall in their house, or maybe under the floor of their house. وَكَانَ أَبُوهُمَا صَالِحًا, and their father was a righteous person. فَأَرَادَ رَبُّكَ, so your Rabb, your Lord Allah, intended أَن يَبْلُغَ أَشُدَّهُمَا وَيَسْتَخْرِجَ كَنْزَهُمَا, that when they reach an adult age, when they become strong, when they grow up, then they should be able to take out this treasure. So, now the story we know is that Khidr al-Islam and Musa al-Islam go into this town, and the people in this town are very cruel, they are very arrogant, and Khidr al-Islam asks them for some food and sustenance, some food and water, and they don't even extend any hospitality. Forget the food and water. They don't even give them a chance to sit down somewhere or offer them a shelter or even acknowledge them, like shutting the door in your face kind of attitude. And there in this town, they see there's a wall which is about to topple, like the leaning tower of Pisa is just coming down. So Khidr al-Islam, all by himself, he doesn't ask Musa al-Islam, by himself he goes and he fixes the wall, gives it support, fixes it, and repairs it so that it won't fall down. And Musa al-Islam says, if you had to do this work, you could have asked for some compensation, you could have asked for some money to the owner of the house. So Khidr al-Islam explains that this wall belongs to children who are orphans. They don't have money to start with. Secondly, they have a treasure buried by their father, which is their inheritance, under the wall. If the wall would have toppled now, these are young kids. The town people, you've already seen how mean they are. So they would have just stolen all that treasure and denied these children their inheritance. And Allah Ta'ala intended, فَأَرَادَ رَبُّكَ. This is important. It's not Khidr al-Islam's intention. It's not Khidr al-Islam's plan. فَأَرَادَ رَبُّكَ. It is the intention of Allah that He should give this treasure to them when they grow up. So Allah Ta'ala ordered Khidr al-Islam to fix this wall. Rahmatan min Rabbik. This is a mercy from your Lord, from your Rabb. Now, first part. Now we understand why the wall was repaired. But here, focus on one thing, that Allah Ta'ala is very kind to all His creations. He looks after every one of them. And Allah Ta'ala says that His love for a man is 70 times more than a mother. Now that is not multiplied by 70, that is to the power 70. 70 times more, even not 70 times, more than 70 times than the mother. Now, for the orphans especially, there is a very, very, very special place in Islam. There's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, which I would like to mention here, and this hadith has been a great motivation for many people. And the hadith is that the Prophet ﷺ is sitting down with other Sahaba, and one Sahabi comes to him, very upset, and says to the Prophet ﷺ, Ya Rasulullah ﷺ, pray for me. My son is lost. 3 days I've been searching for the kid. I can't find him. I don't know where he is. So the Prophet ﷺ is about to pray. He lifts up his hand, and before he starts praying, another Sahabi turns to this man and says, what does your son look like? And he describes his son. And he says, I've seen that child playing outside Medina in the ground with other children. So this man gets up 3 days. He's been looking for his son, and now he suddenly has news where the son is. So he's running off to get his son because he's worried. Where has he been? What he's been up to? What's been happening? So the Prophet ﷺ sends another man behind him, one of the Sahaba, and says, please bring him back. So the man goes, and this man is on his way, going out to of Medina to see his son, and he says, the Prophet ﷺ wants you back. So he comes back. Of course, he was torn between the two. The Prophet wants his back. He hasn't seen his son for 3 days. He wants to be with him. So he comes back to the Prophet ﷺ and says, yes, Ya Rasulullah, you called me back. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, look, when you go there, you see your son, don't go hugging him and kissing him and saying, my son, I found you, and stuff like that. Take him home and then hug him and kiss him and whatever you want to do. Show your affection. And this man, he said, Ya Rasulullah, 3 days I've been searching. I couldn't find my child. I'm overwhelmed with emotion. I'll go and I'll see him and I'll pick him up and I'll kiss him. Why do you not want me to do that? And now listen to what the Prophet ﷺ says. He says he's playing with other children outside Medina. Recently we've had a war, Ghazwa Uhud. Many people died. Medina was attacked. They went out to defend, and many people died. A lot of the children praying around are orphans. They don't have a father. When they see you come to your son and show affection and cry to him, they wouldn't know you have missed him for 3 days. They don't know. God knows where the child has been. He might have gone to a relative's house, might have gone to stay with an uncle and auntie in another village, and now has come back, got upset and left, whatever the reason is. They just see a father overwhelming with love and emotion for his child, and they would miss their fathers. Imagine the sensitivity of the Prophet ﷺ to the human emotion, especially for an orphan. This is why he's called Rahmatul Lil Alameen. This is why he has Uswatul Hasana, and we are told follow his Uswatul Hasana. لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولُ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. Quran tells us follow him. You have to do this kind of life. And it's not just one event. It's not that just the Prophet ﷺ has said about yatim in this one event. He said to ikram al yatim, respect the yatim, stand up for a yatim, don't look down on them, stand up for them, utmost respect. And he's also said, do not show affection to your wife in front of a widow, do not show affection to your children in front of an orphan. And this one hadith motivated a European non-Muslim to convert to Islam. So all the amount of preaching and Quran and the teachings and the spiritual and non-spiritual factors of Islam did not affect him. He said, when I read this hadith, I said, this man could be nothing less than the Prophet of Allah. So this is an important message here, again, about how Allah looks after the yatim. Now, how is it relevant to our current world? Apart from the very obvious, of course, we know that we have to look after the orphans. But there's another thing. We nowadays have this question all the time. Why do people who are bad, like this town who are very bad and they were not looking after Khidr and Musa, why do people who are so bad have such good lives? And why Allah blesses them all the time? And the answer is that you never know that among the bad people, which looked apparently bad to you, how many righteous people might be living there. Same happened at the time of Surah Hudaybiyah. When Surah Hudaybiyah was done, the Sahaba, they were very upset because they had been told that Prophet saw a dream, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, that they're going to Mecca for Hajj. And now, the Prophet had signed a peace deal and they were all ready to attack Mecca. They wanted to attack Mecca. And they knew Allah's help would be with them and they would never be defeated if they do. Yet, the Prophet ﷺ, he made a peace agreement. And later on, the Prophet said to them, I saw the dream, I'm going to Makkah, but the dream did not say it was going to happen this year. And then Surah Al-Fasq comes. And in that surah, Allah Ta'ala explains why this happened. And He says that among the Makkans, there are many Muslims who are secretly Muslim. In their heart, they believe in Allah, but they can't show it. And if there would have been a war and an attack, those people would have suffered and died. Islam does not have the concept of collateral damage. Allah looks after all of His creatures. There's no excuse of collateral damage. The concept of collateral damage actually comes from the history of Christianity. During the war between the Protestants and Catholics, there was a whole city which was destroyed in the Catholic-Protestant confrontation. And the leaders of Christianity, they gave a fatwa. They gave a declaration. Kill all the people in the city, destroy the whole city. Those who are good, they'll go to heaven, and those who are bad, they'll go to hell. So you will be doing favor to both of them. But this is not the concept of Islam. Second part of this ayah, and the second part, Khidr says, وَمَا فَعَلْتُهُ عَنْ أَمْرِي. Very, very important part. He says, and I did not do any of this on my own accord, of my own accord. So he is saying that this is direct orders from Allah. And if you see this ayah, and wherever he's mentioning the actions, he doesn't say I, he uses the word we. So it's Allah ordering him and he's carrying it out. And this clarifies everything, that Khidr is not doing it on his own. He has an understanding, he has a knowledge, he has an understanding behind the events, but the events are being ordained by Allah directly. And Musa alayhi salam, he does not have the understanding behind the events till he's told. This is the difference between the knowledge of Khidr and Musa alayhi salam. That Khidr alayhi salam has the understanding from the start. Musa alayhi salam gets that understanding later on. In fact, he starts with a misunderstanding of the situation, and then he gets the understanding when Khidr alayhi salam explains to him. And in this ayah, you see, when Khidr is talking about the wall being fixed and everything, he says, فَأَرَادَ رَبُّكَ. It was the intention of your Lord, your Rabb, he says to Musa alayhi salam, that we should fix it, and the children, when they grow up, then they should have their traya and their inheritance. So, in current times, some people make an excuse and say, if Khidr could do this, maybe we can use the same logic to do things which are in conflict with Sharia. But no, Khidr alayhi salam is a prophet. And as prophethood has ended, now nobody has the right to use their understanding or misunderstanding and go against Sharia and do non-Sharia compliant acts, or to take the law in their own hand, claiming that they have the divine knowledge coming from Allah and they can do it. No, this is not the case. We are bound to the laws of Allah, and Allah only makes exceptions in His laws by Himself and gives direct orders when He wants an exception to be made. For example, you cannot do qital or murder or kill anyone, even hurt an insect in Makkah. But when the time came for the Prophet ﷺ to go to Makkah and to liberate it from the kuffar, Allah made an exception. And He said, yes, you can take an army and you can take weapons to Makkah. Now, coming to the third part of the ayah. The third part, almost every commentator of Quran has mentioned it. All the tafaseers have picked up on this point, and this is a beautiful point, and I cannot leave it without talking about and explaining it. The third part is, Musa alayhi salam says, ذَلِكَ تَعْوِيلُ مَا لَمْ تَسْتِ عَلَيْهِ صَبْرًا. So he says, this is the explanation and meaning for all those events which you didn't have istata'a, you didn't have capacity to bear with patience, to bear with sabr. Now, sabr is not just patience, it's perseverance and standing your ground, and it is putting effort at the same time while putting up with the situation. But the word used here is ma lam taste. The capacity, the word used for capacity is taste. If you have the Quran open in front of you, this will make more sense. If you go back, Khidr Islam uses a different word. He starts with ayat number 67. He says, قَالَ إِنَّكَ لَن تَسْتَطِيعَ مَعِيَ صَبْرًا. He says, you won't have capacity, but the word he uses for capacity is تَسْتَطِيعَ. Then later on, when Musa alayhi salam sees him making a hole in the ship and objects, then he says, قَالَ أَلَمَ قُلْ, didn't I tell you, إِنَّكَ لَن تَسْتَطِيعَ مَعِيَ صَبْرًا, that you wouldn't have capacity of patience with me. And then later on again, when he kills the young boy, so Musa objects again. And he says to him again, once again he's saying to him, قَالَ أَلَمَّ قُلْ لَكَ إِنَّكَ لَن تَسْتَطِيعَ مَعِيَ صَبْرًا. Didn't I tell you, you won't have the capacity to have patience with me? And finally, when he fixes the wall, and then he asks him, why didn't you take money for it? He says, قَالَ هَذَا فِرَاقُ بَيْنِي وَبَيْنِكَ. Now this is the separation between me and you. سَأُنَبِّئُكَ. So listen to بِتَعْوِيلِهِمْ, the reasons. مَا لَمْ تَسْتَطِعْ عَلَيْهِ صَبْرًا. For what you did not have capacity to have sabr with. But at the end, he doesn't say tastati. He says, ذَلِكَ تَعْوِيلُ. This is the reason. مَا لَمْ تَسْتَطِعْ عَلَيْهِ صَبْرًا. For what you did not have capacity. So in the first time, he's using the complex word for capacity, tastati. And here, he's using a simpler term, a slang term, tasti, no capacity. And what's the difference? The difference is between understanding the situation and not understanding the situation. When you cannot understand a situation, you struggle with capacity. Tastati. It is effort to understand the situation. Once it is explained to you, then you look back at it and say, I didn't have tasti, I didn't have capacity to understand this. It's as simple as this, as logical as this. When you start driving a car, for example, or when a baby starts to walk, they do not have the tastati alayhi sabra. They do not have the capacity to wait, like making mistakes and falling down and hitting the car here, there, bumping and scratching it. And once they learn it and they become fluent in it and they understand the mechanism behind it, then it is tasti. The capacity is very different. And when they look back at it, say like, how could I not have capacity to drive like I do now? I drive and I reach the point I don't even remember what I've done on the way. And previously I remembered every time I moved the gear, every time I put the brake on, 100% focus on the car. Or when a baby is walking, he's holding on to things. So the beauty of choosing the words, it's literary perfection. Quran has got that linguistic perfection par excellence. But the miracle is that Quran was not present in the form of a book at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ says it's a book. Quran says it's a book. ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ. It's in the heavens in the form of a book. But the Prophet ﷺ is just speaking these words. And he's getting linguistic perfection, not making a single mistake, using tastate at the right point and taste at the right point. If you and me talk, even with notes in front of us, even I've got Quran open in front of me, I've got the English translation, I've got the Urdu translation, I have the Tafseer in front of me, I've made notes and I've got notes in front of me, yet when I speak to you, I make so many mistakes and I get messages about correction or pronunciation and other things. No human being can do it perfectly. Even if somebody writes a book, the first manuscript has so many faults in it. You send it to the editor and he crosses things out and you rewrite it and rewrite it and rewrite it till you get it right, till you get the grammar right, till you get the choice of words right. But the Prophet ﷺ is speaking and it's perfect. And he speaks again in salah, in prayers. He's repeating the same Quran. Never a mistake. Always the perfect choice of words. No grammatical mistake. And the grammar of Arabic was not written for many hundred years. The grammar was written by a Persian guy known as Sibawayh. He's the one who wrote the grammar. The vowels in Arabic, they were not in written form till the time of Hazrat Usman. Hazrat Usman radiallahu anhu is the person who put the vowels there. The Arab didn't come till the time of Hazrat Ali, and some say it was even later on by Hajjaj bin Yusuf. Yet the Prophet ﷺ is giving the perfect book. And the first book in Arabic, mind you. There was no book in Arabic before. And when people are writing that book down and later on rewriting it and rewriting and rehearing it from the Prophet ﷺ during Salah, not a single word mistake, even the choice of words is perfect. This is the miracle which cannot be reproduced by any human being. So the last part of this ayah just shows the perfection of the Kalam Allah, of the word of Allah and the book of Allah. Get the top class orators, debaters, speech makers in the world, speech writers in the world. They can write stuff down and never come with this perfection. Get the best writers in the world, ask them to write a book and bring the first manuscript of the book full of mistakes. This Quran is the first and the last manuscript from Allah to the Prophet ﷺ, perfect without any fault, even in the choice of words. Inshallah ta'ala, tomorrow we will talk about a summary of the whole event and the controversies surrounding Khidr alayhi salam and Musa alayhi salam. And I think it's very important to know the controversies, to know what is the fact and what is fiction. So the difference between fact and fiction, inshallah, tomorrow we'll go through all of that and see how the character of Khidr alayhi salam and Musa alayhi salam from the story, how it has been misinterpreted, mixed with legends, mixed with myths, and what is the reason behind them. And why do people say and believe in things which they say and believe about them which are not from the Quran and Hadith? Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.